Hey everyone, this is Gary from Nintendo Dads here, and I've been playing RollerCoaster Tycoon Adventures on the Nintendo Switch. So, are the good times going to roll, or is it a theme in the wrong direction? Well, there's only one way to find out. Do you guys remember the good old days when PC gaming was at its finest and you had games like The Sims and Warcraft, and of course RollerCoaster Tycoon, which were the hotness? Well, we always wanted those sort of games on consoles, and especially a handheld, which is near enough impossible back then. But that's all set to change now when we're getting games like City Skylines and Civilization hitting the Nintendo Switch. And of course, the latest game from that sort of era is RollerCoaster Tycoon Adventures. Well, does it stack up against its competition, and is it any good? Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty of that. It's worth noting before we continue that RollerCoaster Tycoon Adventures, where I'm saying it's PC based, this is actually based more on the mobile editions of the game that have been out recently, rather than the classic old school games that you might have expected. So, as soon as you boot up RollerCoaster Tycoon Adventures, you're greeted to three modes. Scenario, which is kind of like the old games where you have some objectives that are time-based and you have to meet them. And they'll have weird criteria, like in some parks you can't touch the trees, it has to be all natural. And in other parks you have to build roller coasters which are so long and you have to build so many of them. So this was by far my favourite mode on the game, as it's sort of the most gamey of the three, if that makes any sort of sense. The second mode is Sandbox, which is pretty self-explanatory. You get an empty plot of land, you can build whatever you want on it. And the other mode is Adventure Mode, which is kind of new to this sort of game, which gives you a plot of land. It's an old theme park and you've took it over, and you've got a financial advisor there, and you carry on with it as normal, as though you're playing the normal scenarios, and then every once in a while they'll hit you with a decision, and you can either listen to your advisor or do your own thing, and it results in stuff like profits being lost for the next 3 years, or instant cash in your bank, all that sort of thing. It's a neat little mode, but it kind of wears itself thin after a little bit, where the scenarios are sort of short blasts and much more fun in my opinion. As soon as you see your park for the first time, there's this sort of pan from the camera over the top of the level, and it doesn't look good. The performance and the textures are really bottom of the barrel, and it judders and it's just hideous to look at. Luckily, as you go through the game, the performance does get better, especially if you zoom in. The further you zoom out, the less detail, there's less people walking around your park, the textures get a bit mucky, the frame rate gets a bit slow, but zoomed in it actually looks okay, it runs fine, except some of the details are still a bit strange, like the people are sort of these low poly sort of models, which is kind of strange. They don't really walk very smooth along the paths, but other than that, yeah, it's hit and miss with the graphics largely. Constructing the rides is incredibly simple. You basically fund and research the rides first, and then you select them and you pick where they go, and as long as they got a path to them, they'll work. You don't need to do anything else other than that. It's quite simple in the way that it works. All the levels are completely flat, there's no terrain to sort of fight with, and it kind of makes it over simple for a console game in my opinion. It works on the mobile because it's a quick 2-second play. Not so keen on it on the Switch, if I'm being completely honest with you. Roller coasters in this game are even worse, unfortunately. They suffer from probably one of the worst roller coaster constructions I've seen in games. It's sort of, you put down the station and then you snake the path rail round, and then you have to height and bank it all manually, and the controls are just fiddly and they don't look like they line up very well. And also there's no sort of challenge to building the roller coasters. You don't have to build a chain to make the roller coaster go up. You don't have to make sure that the drops are gonna match up together or anything like that. It basically just works. Whatever you build will just work, and it's kind of a bit disappointing that there's no sort of challenge in there and that the construction was so shoddy. On the other hand though, RollerCoaster Tycoon does something amazingly well, which kind of blew me away, and that's that HD rumble works really well in this game. As your roller coaster swirls around the screen, you can actually feel the direction that the trains are coming from and going to. It's kind of a really nice feature, amongst everything else being so bottom of the barrel. As well as roller coasters, you do have all the other rides, as I've said earlier, but you also have utilities. You have to put bathrooms and janitors and even ride maintenance around the park. So there is a level of strategy other than just putting a ride down and that's it. Unfortunately, the strategy in this game is quite low. I haven't really found anything too challenging, and it's just really quite bland, to be honest. Although I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fun at times, but it's kind of the simple sort of fun, in the same way that the mobile versions will give you. A couple of seconds of play here and there, and before you know it, you're kind of done and you can put it down and turn it off. There's actually touchscreen functionality built into RollerCoaster Tycoon Adventures as well, which I did try out because I thought it would work quite well. Unfortunately, it's not quite so much the case. I think that actually playing it handheld is probably the best way to play this game. It is neat being able to touch the menu icons and stuff, and some of the rotation of the cameras and stuff, but placing rides and roller coasters down on touchscreen just doesn't quite feel right for this version. Overall, RollerCoaster Tycoon Adventures wasn't great. It suffers from quite a lot of performance issues and just basically just bland design. There's even a few bugs in there, like this one on screen right now, which I'd met all the criteria of the level, except it hasn't checked it off and won't let me progress, which is really annoying when you put so much time into a level. I would be lying, like I said, if I said I didn't have fun at all with this game. I have had some moments where it seemed to all click into place and seemed to be really good, and yeah, but I can't really recommend it though. It's just what the mobile's got, but worse. So if you do want the experience of RollerCoaster Tycoon, the nearest best release to it right now is the mobile version, or failing that, RollerCoaster Tycoon Classic on stuff like the tablets and things is probably your best bet. And if you like this review, leave it a thumbs up. If you didn't, leave it a thumbs down, and of course subscribe for more lovely Nintendo based content. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.